All right, we are live. So today is Thursday, and it's the second Thursday of December here, or the first Thursday or second Thursday. Either way, it's Thursday. I just want to go over a few things here. As most of you already know, we have added some bonuses to our compensation plan. We have a timed bonus. As soon as you come into the program, there's 30 days. Timer starts. You have 30 days to achieve either $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 of revenue. That means if you sell a Hydro Deluxe, it's a $4,000 purchase. That'd be 4,000. If you sell two, that'd be 8,000, three, so on and so forth. So we already had our first person, Betty, who hit that bonus, the $20,000 in a week and a half, I believe it took her. So she got a $1,000 cash bonus. So that's exciting. And then we have the 10,000, which is a $500 gift card to Healthy Hydration. And then the 5,000 is a $200 gift card to Healthy Hydration. So that's the first one. Now you have 60 days to achieve the next one, which is to help your team members. So if you have 3 team members, you want to help each of them get their first sale. Either, 500, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. But if you help them each get 500, you're going to get a $200 gift card to the store. And that gets them excited and gets them into it. So you're going to set them up for success. Now, because Betty already reached that bonus, I had to create another bonus. So we call this the 10K a month club. So when you reach $10,000 a month of commission that you receive in your bank account, you're going to get an extra $1,000 bonus, which that's pretty exciting. So you're really making, so when you make 10,000, you're going to make 11,000. So it's just free money for you. The more you work, the more you do. And now I've also added another tier of the comp plan because I felt like, we needed to reach down to our, people we're bringing in to make sure that they're understanding the comp plan, make sure they're understanding the training, getting them to the system here. So your first affiliates that you bring into your organization, you're going to make 20%. So just based on these numbers, you're selling a Hydro Deluxe, you're making $800 roughly. I mean, that's a really good day, isn't it? Then the next tier down, so that person, you're going to help them, you're going to put them through the training program, you're going to launch them correctly, you receive 10%, which is 400. And then the next tier from that is what we just added, which is 5%. So that's $200. So that's on all the products, not just the Hydro Deluxe. If you're selling the whole home bundle pack, I mean, you're going to be making a lot of money. We also are doing our trade up program right now. So starting now through the end of the month, a customer can go to the website, your clients, they can put in trade up in the coupon code. Oh, God. And it's going to give them $800 off the purchase of a Hydro Deluxe. No other unit, just this unit right here. And we used to have you sending us the machines, but I don't want it anymore because I had too many already and I just throw them away. So have your client keep it. We're going to use the trust factor here and that they actually do have a machine that they're trading up. It could be a Brita. I don't really care. But what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to use that as a side-by-side comparison. So they got the Hydro Deluxe, they have an alkaline water technology, boom. Now you can do live videos and say, hey, this is what we got. Here's a comparison. So it's a huge asset to you. So that's going on right now. All they do is just type in trade up in the coupon code at the end of checkout, and we'll automatically take that out. We have the new year, new you, that the registration begins tonight. So after this call, you'll get an email to yourself or whoever you registered under. And then also you'll see it on our social media. There'll be a form you fill out. You have to have either a Hydro Deluxe or the home unit to be qualified. And we have a 3-month training course. It's guaranteed results or your money back. So if one of your team members is kind of like, I want to do it, but I don't know if I want to do it. You're like, hey, you got a money back guarantee. You purchase the Hydro Deluxe. It's a $4,000 investment. You have a trade up. You now only have to pay $3,200 for it. And after 3 months, if you don't make your money back and you go through all the training and you do all the homework, and you're going to work with an accountability coach during the week. If you don't make your money back, then Amanda's company, Healthy Hydration, will buy your machine back from you. So you have no risk, only rewards. So this is like a once in a lifetime ton of opportunity, but it's new year, new you. I want to set you guys up for success. I used to run this program in the past when I was with the other company, and we had people that didn't sell in that business for 2 years. They'd come into the program a month later, in a day, they'd make 2 sales. So I got all that information for you. There'll be a link, just click it. It will show you all the past clients and you're going to be shocked. So this week we have Taiwan, who's going to come on just a minute. But we also have Monday and Thursday of next week. We'll be doing product sales and training on Monday.
Then we have Bob Citroneri again. He's so awesome. How many of you enjoyed him last time we had him?
I did.
Okay, good. He's awesome. How many of you got his book? Get his book, because it was complimentary that night. Everybody got his book that wanted it. They just had to put it in the cart and check out. So it's a great tool too, because when you're introducing the water to new people, they want information. They want to read it. And his book is so easy to read and understand. If you haven't already gotten to the Healthy Hydration Affiliate group on Facebook, this is where we educate people. Taiwan's in there too, so you can ask him questions. Here's the QR code to get into that group. So just scan that code and we'll let you join. And make sure you're watching the video, how to launch a new affiliate. That's pinned there at the top. It's very important because if you cannot duplicate yourself to your team, you're only going to stay one level. You won't have that residual income aspect. So we want you guys all to win. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the baton over to Twyon Hubbard. I know most of you have already met him and seen him, but him and I go back quite some time. And he started at the same company I was in and realized it was the hydrogen water that was creating the results, not the alkalinity. Jumped into it, started getting all this research, and just wanted to educate the world. And so now that's what he's doing, from the same vision of the future and just impacting lives one house at a time. So thank you so much for everything that you do. If you want to also give yourself a little introduction, that would be great. Just let the audience know a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so first, hi everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Amanda. My name is Twyon Hubbard, and I am the CEO of H2 Hub, and I'm the creator of H2 Minutes, which is a YouTube channel that teaches about molecular hydrogen therapy and all of its related sciences. And so, Amanda, I actually do have a presentation for our training tonight. So we can go ahead and get into it because I talk a little bit about myself in that too. So
awesome.
Let's go ahead and do it.
The host over to you.
Okay. I'll share my screen and we'll go ahead and get it going. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move this over here. All right. Everybody can see? Bingo. Oh, okay, good. Okay. So as I was saying, been teaching on molecular hydrogen for a long time now. I'm literally almost 10 years in, educating people about H2 therapy. And as Amanda said, I've been blessed to be able to now do this in front of more people, but I was just as passionate 10 years ago as I am today, and starting with one person at a time. So tonight I want to take you guys through some of the basic physical characteristics of hydrogen water. And so we're going to get into some details. Hope y'all can nerd out with me for a little bit, but I think it will be helpful, especially when you guys run into people who are kind of technical. And I'm sure, Amanda's recording this, so you can always go back to the video if you need to kind of follow up, take more notes, whatever. But I've definitely run into some technical people in my life, educating about H2. So this should help you guys with some of the foundational understanding of hydrogen-rich water. So as I was saying, this little intro about me. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to H2 Hub or H2 Minutes and watch my videos. But on H2 Hub, basically, my company is a consulting and educational company that does third-party testing on hydrogen products. That's what you see in the back over here. So my company basically rips these products apart, and we basically try to identify three things. If the product is going to provide therapeutic levels of hydrogen gas and water, if it's safe to use, and if it has some level of decent build quality, and so we try to point people in the right direction. And so Amanda's been doing a great job with her products and sending them in and having me review them and see if they meet in our standards. So all of our performance standards are based on the scientific research. And so I'm pretty much a science head. That's what I do every day. And so that's what I do at H2 Hub. I'm pretty much the face of that and the face of H2 Minutes and handle all the technical aspects. All right. So as I said, we're going to get into a deep dive of the physical characteristics of hydrogen water. So first things first, in order to understand hydrogen water, we got to go back a little bit more, right? So you need to understand the relationship between atmospheric gases and water, or atmospheric air. So we are all aware of atmospheric gas, even if we're not really aware, because you're breathing it right now. So we all exist in a gas bubble. and it has a unique gas composition. And so,
I, I thought we breathe in oxygen.
yes, yes, we do. 21% oxygen, but 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, so we kind of have to understand the relationship between atmospheric gases that make up air and water. And so what you need to know is that atmospheric gases naturally dissolve into water, ordinary water. And so as I was saying, the atmospheric air is our atmospheric air, or the atmosphere, is made up of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen. We actually have hydrogen in our atmosphere, but it's really, really low. I mean, insanely low. It's about 0.00005% hydrogen in our atmosphere by volume, and that's roughly, it makes it roughly a 1/1,000,000th of the total volume. So we have really low levels of hydrogen in our atmosphere. One, because hydrogen is so light, it's hard to contain it. It just floats away. So anyway, so how do these gases dissolve into water? Well, we have Henry to thank for this, a gentleman by the name of William Henry. He was an English chemist in the early 1800s, and he came up with Henry's gas law. So basically what he figured out was the relationship between atmospheric air, or gases, and atmospheric pressure, temperature, and how these gases dissolve into the water. So he figured out this relationship between how this all works. And what he essentially found out was that the quantity or the concentration of a gas in water is directly related to the air pressure above the water, right? So whatever the gas pressure is, so it could be our actual atmosphere, under normal atmospheric pressure, we actually have about 14.7 pounds per square inch, because the air is made of molecules. Molecules have weight. So we just walk around in it every day. We don't realize it, but normal atmospheric pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch. So he figured out there's a relationship between the amount of a gas above the water and how much gas will actually be dissolved in the water. And there's also other little details like the intrinsic properties of a gas. So basically the unique properties of a gas, and if it likes to dissolve in water and it doesn't. But this is what Henry figured out. And so understanding this helps us have an understanding of hydrogen-rich water. So first thing, I'll say this as well. So when we understand this, when you understand this point, you will better understand me talking about hydrogen saturation. Because this is what Henry also found out, is that these atmospheric gases, if I put a glass of water in a box, right, or in a container, and then I pressurize that container to about 15 psi, and I put a glass of water in, and I pumped it full of nothing but oxygen, right? There's going to be a certain amount of oxygen that's going to naturally dissolve into that water, and that will be its saturation point. That's going to be the maximum amount of oxygen that can get into the water. And so oxygen saturation point, based on Henry's gas law, is about 41 milligrams per liter, or ppm. However, our atmosphere is only 21% oxygen. So right now, in your ordinary tap water, every day you walking around, someone's drinking tap water, bottled water, spring water, whatever, that it actually contains about 8.71 milligrams per liter, or ppm, of oxygen dissolved into the water. So most people don't even know they're drinking water that has gases dissolved into it. So it shouldn't be so hard to understand that there could be water that has a type of gas that can help us dissolved into it. And so the math on this is pretty easy. Once you understand Henry's saturation points, you can actually run the math and see how much oxygen is dissolved in typical tap water. All right, so let's get to hydrogen. So how much H2 is dissolved into our tap water or conventional water? All right, so if you just, like I said, bottled water, tap water, spring water, whatever water you want to grab from the store, the amount of hydrogen that will actually be dissolved into that water is 0.2 to 0.8 parts per trillion. It is an insanely low level of hydrogen dissolved in the water, and this is why it's not therapeutic for us. This is why you can't drink just normal water and say, I'm gonna get the benefits of hydrogen. And so this means that if you were to measure, if you were to end up measuring the concentration and figuring out how much hydrogen actually is in the water, if you were to measure that in like a liter of water, it would contain only 8 millionth of a milligram. That's 0 point followed by basically, well, let me let this person in. 0 followed by 7 zeros. It's a very small number. 0.125 milligrams or 0.125 nanograms of hydrogen dissolved into water. So it's really, 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 really low levels of H2 dissolved into our tap water. So this might be a little fun fact for you guys when it comes to the Hydro Deluxe. By the way, we have approved Hydro Deluxe. It is on our website. So if you want to see, you know, our recommendation of the product, you can go there and see it. All right. So this might be interesting. Your tap water has approximately 24 million times less hydrogen gas dissolved into it than the Hydro Deluxe. So that's a pretty that's a big difference, and it makes sense why you would get therapeutic potential from the Hydro Deluxe, whereas you wouldn't get it from an ordinary tap water. All right, so let's keep moving. So what is molecular hydrogen saturation point in water? What is, if we took the box, if we took that container and basically made it at 15 psi, right? We pressurized it to about 15 psi and put nothing but hydrogen gas in it. How much hydrogen gas would dissolve into the water? Well, the hydrogen saturation point is 1.57 ppm or milligrams per liter, which is relatively low compared to other gases or other molecules. And so, like I was saying, oxygen, we showed you oxygen, right? It's 41, but like something like carbon dioxide that makes up carbonated beverages, right? Carbon dioxide saturation point is around like 1,500 milligrams per liter or ppm. So you can dissolve far more carbon dioxide into the water than you can hydrogen. So it has a pretty low saturation point. And that's basically the maximum amount you can get into a glass of water under normal conditions. If you were to just bubbled pure hydrogen gas into the water, this is basically the maximum amount you're going to be able to get is about 1.6 ppm. So this quote says, right here, this quote says, the solubility of H2 is 1.56 milligrams per liter at standard ambient temperature and pressure. So SATP is just basically a fancy way for scientists to say typical conditions. Just means, like I said, about 14.7 psi, pounds per square inch. That's the amount of air pressure that's pushing at sea level and at about 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. Okay. But we all know that the Hydro Deluxe and your products that you guys carry has more hydrogen in it than 1.57 milligrams per liter or ppm. We know that it goes above the saturation point. And so this is what's called super-saturating the water. And you're able to do this because more pressure equals more H2. So if you can increase the pressure, you can dissolve more hydrogen gas into the water. And so this is also something that's figured out. Henry figured this out for us, so we should thank Henry for that. But the quote says, the solubility of H2 gas under normal temperature and pressure conditions is 1.6 ppm, 1.6 milligram per liter, or 0.8 millimoles. As the pressure increases, however, H2 can dissolve into the water in a pressure-dependent manner. Henry's law. So basically, this is what I was saying earlier, that at basically 14.7 psi, the maximum amount you're going to get under normal conditions is 1.57 milligrams per liter. But if we increase the pressure up to 50 psi, you can dissolve 5.3 milligrams per liter ppm of hydrogen into the water, which is a fantastic concentration. This is something along the lines of what the portable hydrogen water bottles can do. All right. So therefore, it is important to understand that 1.57 milligrams per liter ppm is the maximum you can achieve, the maximum concentration or maximum achievable concentration when bubbling hydrogen gas into an open glass of water, but it's not the highest H2 concentration that you can achieve. And so if there was, you guys run into somebody one day and you're trying to teach them about it, and they have a little bit of awareness about hydrogen gas and some of this stuff, they'd be like, well, what are you talking about? Hydrogen gas levels are so low, it can't be dissolved into the water. Like, you know, it's not going to dissolve. And even if it does, it's not going to dissolve very much. And he's like, well, yeah. I mean, hydrogen has a low concentration solubility in water. I mean, it doesn't dissolve a lot, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of H2 molecules to make up that concentration. And number two, doesn't mean we can't actually pressurize it to get more hydrogen into the water. And that's what our systems do. So that's a way of talking about it. Okay, so another reason H2 has a low concentration in water. So, and I'll probably explain a lot in this section, and you guys can go back through and watch this video, take notes, and look over what I've actually written, because I think it'd be helpful for you guys to understand it. But molecular hydrogen is basically classified as a nonpolar and neutral molecule. So basically, in other words, it doesn't possess a charge and it equally shares its electrons. So molecular hydrogen is two hydrogen atoms bonded together, covalently bonded together, meaning that they share their electrons. And they don't just share their electrons because they're bonded, but they equally share them. Now, one side pulls on the electrons harder than the other. And because of this characteristic of hydrogen gas, it doesn't like to dissolve into water. And so hydrogen would be classified as a hydrophobic substance, like fats, like oil and water don't mix, because oil is a nonpolar, lipids are nonpolar molecules. And but water actually likes to dissolve what's called polar molecules. And these basically means that the molecules don't, they might share electrons, but one of the atoms pulls on the electrons more, so it causes a pole. So basically, this side will be slightly more negative, and this side will be slightly more positive. And these molecules dissolve super well in the water. Water loves these molecules, and you guys are really aware of them because you probably use them all the time in your water, or like sugar. Sugar is a polar molecule, and it dissolves fantastically in water. You put it in water, you stir it, and all of a sudden it disappears. Well, because it dissolved into the water. Same thing with salt. But as I said, fats or oil don't like to mix with water. And this is the reason why hydrogen has such a low concentration compared to some of the other gases. But because of this characteristic, it also gives it its unique abilities to benefit us and get anywhere it wants to in our bodies. So it's kind of weird. They almost got like a love-hate relationship, hydrogen and water, molecular hydrogen and water. Okay, so how long does hydrogen gas remain in the water when it's dissolved? So this is a good question. In order to understand this, you need to talk about half-life. So hydrogen's half-life is basically 2 hours. And so like in order to understand half-life, I have to give you an example. So let's say we had a glass of hydrogen water, just a simple glass. I have a glass here. I might have one. Oh, that's upstairs. Okay, let's say I had a glass of hydrogen water, right? And that water was at like say 16.9 ounces or 500 milliliters. And it contained 1.6 milligrams per liter or ppm of hydrogen gas dissolved into the water. Well, its half-life at 1.6 ppm under normal atmospheric conditions and everything else would be 2 hours. So in 2 hours, half of the hydrogen will be gone. It's going to basically dissipate from the water. So another way of thinking about this, we all talk about this many times by saying my pop went flat. Like when you say that, and when we're saying that, we understand that it had its physical characteristics. Pop had a bunch of CO2 in it, and now the CO2 is gone because it dissipated. Well, this is the same thing with hydrogen. Hydrogen dissipates rapidly. So in 2 hours, half of the hydrogen is going to be gone out of the water if it's open to the atmosphere. So instead of 1.6 ppm, in 2 hours, you're going to have 0.8 ppm dissolved into that water. And basically, most of all of the hydrogen is going to be dissipated into the atmosphere in about 10 hours. So that's what this quote says. The concentration of saturated hydrogen water, which is 1.6 ppm, placed in an open cup is reduced by half after about 2 hours, and almost all of the hydrogen is lost after 10 hours. So this is really important to understand too, that half-life is not some like absolute value or like linear function or something along these lines. You can affect the half-life. If the water temperature is really hot, the half-life is going to be shorter. Things like, well, I have variables here. Things that can affect the half-life would be water temperature, atmospheric pressure, nanobubble size, water volume, the container, the surface area, how much water is exposed to the atmosphere. All these things will affect the half-life. And so although 2 hours is a general rule, it doesn't mean that if, you were walking around and talking and having a good time with somebody and shaking your glass, doesn't mean that like, you're basically going to increase the rate of this dissipation of it leaving. Okay, so in portable H2 water bottles, the half-life is slightly shorter, basically around 1.5 to about 1.8 really, but I have here 1.83 to about 2 hours. So with your portable bottles, once you open it, you pop the seal, basically in an hour and a half, if it's left open to the atmosphere, half the hydrogen is going to be gone. And so it's a little faster than 1.6. And this is for a reason, because the higher the H2 concentration means the shorter the half-life. So a way of thinking about this would be like a champagne bottle. So when you have champagne and you're going to celebrate, when you pop it, like, because it has so much carbon dioxide dissolved into it, has a super high concentration of it, and is held under a lot of pressure, like 90 psi. It's just got a ton of carbon dioxide. When you pop it, it rushes out because it has so much in there that it rushes out. It tries to equilibrate with the atmosphere rapidly, faster than if it was at a lower concentration. And because of this feature, if you're going to have higher concentration hydrogen-rich water that you're going to be messing with, it's better to drink it quicker and not mess around with it. Well, I should say all hydrogen water you should drink quickly, but even more so high concentration hydrogen-rich water, because it's going to have a slightly, it's going to have basically a shorter half-life than if it was at a lower concentration, or something like 0.5 ppm or something along those lines. Okay, so dissipation and equilibrium. So basically, what you need to keep in mind about hydrogen water is because, like, as I said, its unique characteristics, and because it doesn't like to dissolve in the water, it's a very fragile molecule when dissolved into water. So any kind of agitation or moving or any of that kind of stuff will cause hydrogen gas to leave the water faster, which is going to be problematic because we need that hydrogen gas to be in the water to get into our bodies to induce the therapeutic effects. So this is why it's best to drink your hydrogen water fresh, and it's best to, if you're going to be moving around or anything, to fill up, if you're going to fill up your bottle with hydrogen water, it's best to fill it all the way overfilling, like fill it over the top and then put the lid on so there's no air gaps. So hydrogen doesn't have a place to escape. And then when you open the seal, then drink it, and drink it pretty quickly. Okay, so dissolved H2 versus undissolved hydrogen gas. Okay. So this is an important topic because nanobubbles of molecular hydrogen, or the topic of nanobubbles of hydrogen gas, has become more popular in the marketplace. I've been teaching about it a lot more. You've been teaching about it for years, but it seemed like it's kicked up a notch. And so it's going to be important to make sure you pay attention to this part, because it's going to help you be able to have conversations well and make sure that you're being accurate. So dissolved H2 in water is always in the form of nanobubbles. So if the hydrogen gas is dissolved, it is in the form of nanobubbles. And nanobubbles range anywhere from 1 to 1,000 nanometers. But nanobubbles are invisible to the naked eye. So you cannot see nanobubbles. Literally, like there's no reason to even try. You cannot see it. And to put this into perspective, you had the most pristine hydrogen water that you could ever have, that could ever exist. It would look like basically ordinary water sitting out with no bubbles. It would just look like clear water because 100% of the hydrogen gas would be dissolved in the form of nanobubbles. But there's no perfect system that produces hydrogen water. So you're always going to end up having some kind of bubbles. But the therapeutic hydrogen, we get the therapeutic effects from hydrogen through nanobubbles. So when we drink the water, what makes it to our bloodstream, into our organs, into our cells is dissolved hydrogen gas. It's going to be in the form of nanobubbles. All right, so most times the dissolved hydrogen gas within water is in range between 500 to 1,000 nanometers. This is pretty typical for hydrogen infusion machines, which are called HIMs, or the acronyms HIMs, or even alkaline ionized or alkaline ionizers. This is a typical range of hydrogen gas dissolved into water, the nanobubble size. But the smallest H2 nanobubble that could probably be generated is probably likely around probably contains about 4 to 8 H2 molecules together. So you take a single H2 molecule, put about 4 of them together, and it will probably produce one of the smallest nanobubbles that probably exists, which is going to be around 1 to 2 nanometers across. So that's a really, 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 really small bubble. Likely not to have many of those at all within our hydrogen water. So as I said, let's clear up the confusion. These nanobubbles are not smaller than molecular hydrogen, because how can a nanobubble be smaller than the thing that makes up the nanobubble? You know, right? So multiple, many hydrogen molecules put together makes up the actual nanobubble. And so hydrogen's molecular size is 0.1 to about 0.2 nanometers in size. That's exceptionally small. That's unfathomably small. This means that molecular hydrogen is about 10 to 15 times smaller than DNA. DNA is small enough to sit into the nucleus of the cell in our cells. That's really, really small. So molecular hydrogen is insanely small. And to put this in kind of perspective, some of the smallest nanobubbles produced by hydrogen water systems are pretty much in the range of 25 to about 200 nanometers. And that size is about 500 to 2,000 times larger than a hydrogen molecule. So when you're thinking of nanobubbles, it's important to realize that there's certain benefits that maybe could be attributed to nanobubbles, and we do need more research on them. When we try to produce hydrogen water with a smaller nanobubble scale, or produce them in a smaller size, right? So you go, instead of a 500 to 1,000, you're able to start producing nanobubbles within water, with hydrogen nanobubbles within water, somewhere between 30 to you let this person in, 30 to maybe, let's say 200 or 300 or something like that. There's probably going to be some benefits, especially like what we talked about, like the half-life. It takes hydrogen a lot longer to get out of the water when they're in the form of nanobubbles due to something called Brownian's motion. Basically, they get stuck, and so they take longer to get out. But when you're seeing bubbles that are floating to the top of the water, so when you produce hydrogen water and you see all these bubbles that are floating, those are all called macro bubbles. We don't get benefits from macro bubbles. They float out and they get out. You can see them escaping. If you can see them, then they're not dissolved hydrogen gas. And so this is why it's important to make sure that whatever hydrogen systems that you guys are going to be selling, and you guys have got with the right company, is going to be doing laboratory reports to kind of help you guys understand how much dissolved hydrogen gas these systems produce. Or you got people like me who's going to test them and be able to see how much dissolved hydrogen gas you're going to get. And so keep this in mind when you're talking about nanobubbles, or you're talking about your systems like the Hydrodeluxe ability to make nanobubbles of hydrogen gas, and that there is nothing smaller than hydrogen or hydrogen gas, and that hydrogen gas is what produces these nanobubbles. So by definition, they can't be smaller. All right, so measuring molecular hydrogen in water. Well, let me see this. Is that the right slide? I think that's the right slide. Okay. So measuring molecular hydrogen in water. And so the H2 concentration of hydrogen gas dissolved into water is expressed in the units of ppm, ppb, or milligrams per liter. You will hear these terms often. You go online, you start looking at different, competitors, different things like that. You're going to see them talk about, my ppms, or, this product has, my product has, makes 2 ppm of hydrogen gas dissolved in the water, 1.5 ppm of hydrogen gas dissolved into the water. So I'll go ahead and break down these terms so you guys understand what they mean and like if they're important or not important. So ppm stands for parts per million, ppb stands for parts per billion, and milligrams per liter stands for milligrams per liter. And so how are they related? Okay, so these units of measurement, to make it just simple, 1 ppm is equal to 1,000 ppb. Or another way of stating it would be ppb can be obtained by multiplying a ppm by 1,000. So some companies will use ppb. You will see them say my product generates 1,600 ppb. What you need to understand is that is 1.6 ppm, and if you were following closely what I was talking about, that means that they saturate the water with hydrogen. That's hydrogen saturation point, right? They don't super saturate the water, but they saturate, which is still a really good concentration of hydrogen within water. And then also what you need to understand is that milligram per liter and ppm are virtually the same. So they're basically the same thing. This is why you will hear me say milligrams per liter, and then I will preference it a lot of times with ppm. Because more people, especially in the hydrogen world, are aware of ppm, but they're not so aware of milligrams per liter. So I'll let them know that they basically mean the same thing by mentioning them in the same sentence. So basically, I'll go ahead and help you understand the relationship of why ppm and milligram per liter are the same. And I won't get into a whole lot of the details because it does require some math, and it's not necessary for us to go through all that. But what you need to understand is that when it comes to ppm in the context, or I'll just read it. ppm in the context of hydrogen water means that there is 1 part hydrogen or hydrogen molecule in 1,000,000 parts of water, right? And so that's what ppm means. So when you say I have 1 ppm, you have literally 1 part hydrogen in 1,000,000 parts of water. That's what 1 ppm means. All right, so in order to understand the relationship of how ppm ties with milligram per liter, you need to understand that 1 liter of water weighs 1,000,000 milligrams, and having 1 milligram in 1,000,000 milligrams is equal to having 1 part in 1,000,000. They basically mean the same thing. And that's somewhat of a tongue twister. I should have I looked at that millions about 3 times. That's funny. But anyway, yes, but that's basically why they are the same unit. And so you can use them interchangeably. I will definitely say use milligram per liter because it's going to help you. It's going to help you not only for you, but it's going to help you talk with clients and make sure they're going to get the right amount of hydrogen that's going to be therapeutic for their bodies. So why milligram per liter is better than ppm or ppb? Because using milligram per liter allows us to precisely track the amount of H2 ingested per day in milligrams. So when you hear people and scientists like Tyler LeBaron, or Rob, or Bob, or someone else, right? Dr. Oda, somebody, right? Say, yeah, we need to take, 0.5, or we need to take not really 0.5, but 1 milligram per day or more of hydrogen to like get the benefits. This is where they're getting at. They actually understand milligrams per liter, and this is what they would even subscribe for us to use because it's going to help us understand. So the research suggests that we should take 1 to 3 milligrams per day or more of H2 to obtain the benefits of molecular hydrogen. This is kind of like the suggested dose. When you look at all the scientific research, and you kind of compile it, this is kind of like the consensus of like how much hydrogen gas is being consumed, and in terms of milligrams, that's generating all these, producing all these therapeutic effects in this broad range of human disease models. And so when you understand this, milligrams per liter, you'll understand how much hydrogen water you need to drink to actually get the benefits of hydrogen. So I'm gonna go ahead and use an example for you guys so you can understand it. So let's say we got some water from the Hydro Deluxe, right? And the Hydro Deluxe, produces 3 milligrams per liter, ppm. So let's say you filled it up and you were able to fill it up exactly to a liter, 33.8 ounces of water. Then if you consume that whole liter, you would get 3 milligrams of hydrogen in your body. Makes it very easy. Oh, cool. I hit my target. I drank a liter from the Hydro Deluxe. I got my hydrogen, I got my therapeutic dose of hydrogen for the day, because you know that it's tied to milligrams per liter. But if you were just using ppm and people didn't understand, then you'd be like, how much water do I need to drink? It has 3 ppm, but how much do I need to drink? I don't really comprehend like what is necessary for me to get the benefits. So now you can actually explain it. Like you say, hey, drink a liter of the Hydro Deluxe every day, and you're actually getting really good H2 levels in terms of milligrams that you're ingesting. Drink a liter, right? And so it makes it easy to have those conversations. All right. So the last thing would be the do's and don'ts of measuring hydrogen gas within water. All right. So it's going to be really important to not only rely on individuals like me or companies like H2 Analytics, which is a US-based hydrogen laboratory that kind of performs basically laboratory tests on hydrogen water using gas chromatography to measure the content of hydrogen gas dissolved into water. Then relying on us, you can actually do this at home using a reagent called H2 Blue. And so the only valid ways that I would suggest hydrogen gas to be measured in water would be through a very expensive device such as gas chromatography, or like the Unisense H2 micro sensor. Both of these are really expensive devices. I mean, insanely expensive devices. Or you could use something like H2 Blue, which is pretty convenient. It's pretty cheap. And it can deliver dependable results with practice and the correct technique. So you have to kind of know how to do it, and it has a little bit of learning curve. Once you figure it out, you can actually get pretty accurate readings. I'm gonna take you through some of the steps. I actually produced videos on this topic, so if you guys want to go through and watch those, I'm actually gonna reference them here a little bit in the presentation and get the breakdown of really how this works. You can go there, but I'm gonna take you through a few steps. So first things first, when you're gonna measure, I'll break down H2 Blue first. So H2 Blue is, I got some right here. H2 Blue is a reagent that uses methylene blue and colloidal platinum, and it allows you to detect the presence of dissolved hydrogen gas within water, those nanobubbles I was talking about. It allows you to be able to detect the presence of them and also accurately measure the dissolved hydrogen concentration within the water. So if you know how to use this properly, you can actually get, oh, wow, I see, man, I measured it, and the laboratory report said it made 3 ppm, but I measured about 2.7, but I'm not that great at using H2 Blue. So, man, my device is actually pretty close. And my device is actually making what it's supposed to make, that kind of stuff, right? So H2 Blue, basically, when you use it, if the water does not contain any dissolved hydrogen gas within it, when you put the drops into the water, it will remain blue. There's no nanobubbles of hydrogen gas in the water. There's no dissolved hydrogen gas in the water. But if there is dissolved hydrogen gas in the water, it will react with the hydrogen gas and turn the methylene blue that's in here into leucomethylene blue, which is clear, or basically translucent. It turns clear. You can't see it. And so you can easily count the drops and be able to calculate your concentration. So first things first, when you're measuring hydrogen gas with H2 Blue, you want to make sure you obtain fresh H2 water for your sample that you're going to put into your beaker. So H2 Blue comes just like this to your home. I'll show you. So I have a brand new bottle right here, brand new package. Comes just like this. They open it up. All right. So just like this, you get a brand new beaker. And now you have a beaker, a graduated beaker that you can see, right? It also comes with a stirrer. Also comes with, where's my stirrer? No, there it is. All right. It also comes with a little stirring wand so you can stir gently, right? So you can measure your hydrogen gas with the water. So the first thing you want to do is make sure when you're getting your hydrogen water, you obtain it fresh. So with, like, say, for example, if you had a flow through system like the Hydro Deluxe, water's flowing through the system. You want to make sure you flush, you get a glass of water and you push whatever setting you want, 250 milliliters or something like that. 500 milliliters probably be best. Push the button and you let it run for a little bit so that it flushes the lines. So you're going to get fresh hydrogen water. And then you do not want to take the hydrogen water from the glass that has been filling up. You want to actually take your beaker and hold it at a 45-degree angle and get directly from the stream. And you want it to let it slide in at a 45-degree angle. Holding it like this, remember, as we said, agitation causes hydrogen to leave faster. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to hold it just like this and it's going to splatter all on the bottom of the beaker. You don't want to do that. So hold it at a 45-degree angle. And then you want to make sure that the meniscus is at 6 milliliters. So here I have a good example of what it looks like for the meniscus to be at 6 milliliters. So you can see this on the screen. This is the meniscus. You got this concave cavity of water. The meniscus, the bottom of the meniscus needs to be at 6 milliliters. And then the surface of the water should be between 6 milliliters and 7 milliliters. If you do not do this, you're basically not gonna get accurate readings. You can skew your results by 25 to 30% or more. So it's important you want to get accurate readings. So that might look like you having to get it, and you go above and you try to pour it out, and then you pour out too much. Well, dump it and then start again. You want to make sure you get an accurate sample size. And then you would hold H2 blue into the beaker upside down. So when you're actually using H2 blue, you do not want to hold it like sideways or anything like this when you're doing your drops. These H2 blue, this bottle is actually specialized. It has a special tip on it that's gonna, if you hold it just right, it will actually basically, the drops are calibrated to a specific amount. So if you hold it upside down, and I actually like to hold it in the beaker closer to the water like this. That's how I like to do it. And I'll squeeze the bottle. And so I decrease that actual length of basically how far the drop has to fall into the water. So I decrease it and I'll just squeeze. And I'm able to calculate how much hydrogen gas is dissolved in the water. Now in my video, I break down the single drop method and the loaded drop method. And depending on the technology that you're testing, it's important to know which method to use. So the single drop method looks like this. If you have a hydrogen product, let's say you're doing a comparison, right? Let's say you have, you got your Hydro Deluxe out and someone has a water ionizer, right? And for the water ionizer, I would say you probably want to try the single drop method. The single drop method, because it's probably going to have a lower H2 concentration, definitely lower than your Hydro Deluxe, right? So it might be 0.5 ppm, it might be 0.3 ppm, it might make 0.8 ppm. Wow, right? So that's only to do that, to understand that, which I'll talk about here on the next page. You will only have to put in like a few drops into the water, but you don't want to go past what's called the titration endpoint, which is where the water remains blue. There's no more hydrogen gas in the water because it's all reacted with the H2 blue. So what you do is you put a single drop in and then you stir it. You gently stir it. Just a very light, gentle stir to basically allow the H2 to react with the methylene blue. And then you add another single drop and you lightly, gently stir. That's the single drop method. If you have low H2 levels, or you're measuring water that has low H2 levels, that's the method you should use. If you're using something like the Hydro Deluxe and you already know the system's been producing, you know, like I said, 3 ppm or whatever, I would do the loaded drop method. You know, I would put in multiple drops at a time, swirl it, or do the little stir, and then put in multiple drops at a time. You know, 10 drops at first, and then you swirl it. Another 10, then you swirl it. Things like that. That's the loaded drop method. All right. So as I was saying, when it comes to H2 blue, to get accurate readings, you need to understand that each drop that clears, when you put a drop into the water of the 6 milliliters, each drop that clear, it is representing 0.1 milligrams per liter or ppm. So you can simply count the drops that clears, right? So you can, if you put 10 drops that clear, okay, you know you got 1 ppm or 1 milligram per liter, either or, right? Either one works. We'll use milligram per liter though. And then if you have 20, you put 20 drops in. Just you count the drops. Okay, now you got 2 milligrams per liter. So you can easily calculate the H2 concentration using H2 blue. And once the water remains blue, so let's say you put in 19 drops, and then on the 20th drop, you put it in, and then you stir it, or you can use my method, which is the swirl, not shaking. Shaking, and then that's agitating causes hydrogen to leave. It's literally a tiny little flicker of your hands, just a little flicker. So, and it'll swirl the water and it'll clear it and allow hydrogen to react better with the methylene blue. But anyway, when you do that, and on that 19 drop, you put the 20 in and it stays blue. Then you hit the titration endpoint. That's the last drop. Okay, great. I know I have 2 milligrams per liter in the water. On that last drop, and it remains blue, that's where it stops, and that's where you count and say, okay, whatever that last drop was, that's what I have. If it was 20, then you have 2. If it was 16, you have 1.6. That's how H2 works and how you can do it. Also, you can use it just to show them that the presence of hydrogen gas is within the water. Like we said, hydrogen is invisible. It's a tasteless, odorless, colorless gas. Like you can't see it. And so if you simply just want to show people, hey, your tap water doesn't have hydrogen gas in it, but my water does, and you take H2 blue and you put it in there and it turns clear, they're going to go, whoa, what's going on with your water? Like, exactly. So it has hydrogen gas in it. All right, some don'ts. So these are the things you do not do when you're using H2 blue. So do not take your time getting your sample. So don't lollygag around and everything, because hydrogen is leaving the water immediately. Like, so you want to try to ensure that you're getting accurate readings by moving rather quickly. So don't take your time. Make sure you have all your items with you. You know, you don't want to be able to be like, oh, I'm going to measure some whatever. I'm going to measure the hydrogen gas, and then you start to fill it up and try to show off for people, and then your H2 blue is in the other room, but now you got your beaker set up. That's not a good way of handling it. Make sure you got all your items present for doing the hydrogen test. And then you do not pour the water in at a 90-degree angle. So as I said, you want to go at 45-degree angle. If you were using a portable hydrogen water bottle, you would do the same thing. You would pour it in at a 45-degree angle. Don't pour it in at 90. It's going to splatter and you're going to lose H2. In fact, I've helped people where I have an individual complaining because they basically purchased a hydrogen system that was supposed to be measuring 2.5 milligrams per liter. And they're complaining. I got H2 blue. I did it. I followed the videos. I don't understand. Whatever. Right. And so I was like, well, I sent them everything, sent them my videos, sent all the stuff. And they were like, yeah, it's still not working. I'm only getting like 0.8. And I was like, how is that possible? That doesn't match my test results really well, right? And so I Zoomed with it and I said, show me how you're using H2 blue. And I went through it with him, and sure enough, you know, the whole little stir I was talking about, man, they was in that mug making music. They was in there making music. I was like, you didn't stirred out all your hydrogen. And sure enough, I told them, stop all that. Make sure that you gently do it, or if not, use my swirl method. And so had them do it, measured 2.4. They were stirring out all the hydrogen and stressing about it, but it was actually making what it was supposed to make. So do not shake, do not do this, or do not, like I said, make some music in that mug. Don't do that. And then do not move the beaker off a lot. So typically when I'm doing my test, like I'll have it flat on the table, just like this, and I'll squeeze and I'll do my drops, and then I will lift it up gently, and then do my little swirl, little shake, little swirl, and I'll set it back down and I'll do my drops. You want to make sure you're maximizing your test results by basically handling hydrogen gently. You know, you got to take care of your hydrogen. It's fragile. And then next thing, just go watch my videos on this subject. I go through so much to break down this subject matter and help you guys know how to use it properly. And I even go through some other demonstrations of how you can use H2 Blue to really show people really cool effects of molecular hydrogen. Like how we talk about molecular hydrogen can diffuse through all human barriers. The blood-brain barrier, the placenta barrier, the testis barrier, right? Like any barrier, like the air gap barrier, whatever barrier you got, hydrogen can go through it. Well, okay, well, then you can demonstrate that to people by using an example. And I actually show that in the video. I show how it can diffuse through plastic and still neutralize or still react with the H2 Blue that's in a whole nother bag. So if you just put the bag, you put H2 Blue in a bag with a tiny little bit of water, and then you set that bag into hydrogen water. Let's say you had like, you know, say you had like big old glass of water from the Hydro Deluxe, and you set it in there, and then you just leave it, and you come back, hydrogen diffused through the plastic bag and reacts with the H2 Blue, and it turns clear. And you're like, what in the world? That's crazy. I know I just put it. So it's a really cool example because it shows, okay, if it's able to fuse through this plastic, what is it doing to your cells? I guarantee you, it's going to go through your cells easier than it's going to go through that plastic. But it's hydrogen can get through anything. So it's a way to be able to demonstrate to people. So these are the videos I'm talking about. One teaches you how to properly use H2 Blue and teach you what not to do. And then the last one teaches you some of these examples, show you how hydrogen is like an antioxidant and things like that. Cool little examples. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. These are 3 things I have for you guys. Go watch our videos because they're going to be able to help you have the knowledge to be able to educate virtually anyone. Go take MHI's courses because they're going to give you the credibility to be able to educate virtually anyone. And continue learning in order to educate people and be able to not only produce finances for your family and for yourself and what you want to dream for yourself. But in order to do that, the vehicle to do that is learning and educating people. And so go continue to learn from me, from Tyler, from all these other researchers and people that are in this field that are leading the way on education. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank